Destinyx, making a difference for this next generation. I'm Destiny Yarbrough, your host today. I have two amazing people with me today, my pastors, our family's pastor, Pastor David Walters and Pastor Andrew Erwin. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy that you're here. So we're going to talk about culture and transparency today. So Jesus was clear in his mission of his followers to make disciples. That hasn't changed. However, the world keeps changing. We're in an ever-ending changing world. So what would you say as far as communication, as far as changing, in an ever-changing world, what would you say to this next generation of keeping up with the gospel and presenting the gospel? What could you share on that?
Yeah, well, the world is changing. It's always changing. In fact, the rate of change is happening faster than ever before, especially with increase of technology. But the good news is that God's the same.
Yes.
And God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is never changing. His character is never changing, nor is his compassion for people. And so God's just as interested in beginning relationships with people today as he always has been. And as people that are created in God's image and God's likeness, there are parts of us that don't change either. And those are specific universal needs, specific wants that we have in our lives. And specific to God is that God's a relational God. Yes. So God exists in Father, Son, Holy Spirit, communal, relational, and the same is true of us. There's a craving within all of us for a relationship. And so regardless of how the world changes, technology changes, church style worship changes, one thing that is not changing is a person's desire for relationship.
Yes.
And so when we can enter into a relationship with people in natural ways and natural settings, it gives us an avenue for us to continue to share the gospel and continue to preach the message of Jesus Christ at a one-on-one level or at a smaller group level in a way that fits for what people desire.
Right, that's good. And since relationships remain critical for making disciples, what are some of the relational challenges and opportunities that you're seeing in the digital age?
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology continues to evolve at a really rapid pace. And so we as the church and church leaders have got to pay attention to that, and we've got to be kind of on the forefront of that. I recently had a pastor ask me, and they said, "Do I need to be on social media?" And I said, "Well, do you want to reach people?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's where people are." In fact, a recent study said that 7 out of 10 Americans are on social media, and millennials specifically check social media upwards of 90 times each day. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's something we should be afraid of. In fact, I don't think we should view social media or technology in general as an opponent. I think we should look at it as a possibility. We should look at all of the avenues that we can reach new people, because with all of the technology that we have, we can actually advance the gospel faster than ever before. In fact, when I think about millennials in general, I don't think we should look at them as the opponents. We should just look at them as possibilities, because they're filled with potential.
Yes.
We love to knock on millennials. All the problems that we have, all the issues, and there are plenty. But my generation also has the opportunity to advance the gospel in ways that have never even been possible before. If we were to be motivated, inspired, and challenged, we could do more good than has ever been done on the face of the planet in one generation.
Right. No, I agree. You know, social media is such a huge platform, and you're right. You have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. Am I missing any?
Probably.
Oh,
Yeah, probably.
Always changing.
Right. And like with the younger generation, how do you feel about negativity on social media? I just want to ask that question, because some people can be negative. If you're trying to put some positive out there and you're trying to encourage, and then someone comes back that's not, say, a believer, how would you handle that?
That's a great question, because I feel like trolling has almost become an art form at this point in time, where people take pleasure in knocking other people down. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the first is there's just a lack of vulnerability when it comes to social media.
Yes.
People get really bold and really brave when they're sitting in their basement typing on a keyboard. And when they're at home and there's nobody that can confront them face to face, they all of a sudden have a bravado that's really not healthy. They wouldn't say things in person that they'll say online. And so we got to be aware of that for sure. We need to make sure that we are reaching out to people and trying to extend olive branches as opposed to trying to whack people over the head with truth. We need to kind of meet them where they are. And we need to recognize where they're vulnerable and recognize where we can actually connect with them. And I think we also need to recognize that social media is a platform where people really want to be honest, but they don't know how.
Right.
I think we can actually model that for people by kind of speaking into where we truly are and how we really feel about things.
No, I agree. You know, transparency, that's what we're talking about. People want to see transparency. You know, that's our tagline, we are raw, we are real, we are redeemed, because people want to be able to relate to real life issues that are happening in the world.
That's right.
So that's good. Thank you. As our culture continues to change, how do we stay relevant?
I'll let you take this one if you want it.
Well, I mean, relevancy is something that is going to change. And again, as we talked about, relationships stay the same. God stays the same. And so we point people to what is constant and try to adapt the methodology that goes along with the changing culture. And so over the course of 2,000 years of Christ followers, methodology has changed. It has to change. Doesn't mean that we water down a message or change the message. We just adapt the way that we communicate that. Social media is one of those platforms that we can do that in the digital age. So we need to make sure that we're utilizing that the best that we can to preach the gospel, to share the gospel, and to even promote those things that are going to help people connect to God and connect to other people in a real authentic way. And so for just an example, at our church in January, we launched an online worship service. The very first Sunday that we had that, over 900 viewers on 4 different continents in 8 different countries worshiped with us, heard the gospel message preached. And I think since then we've almost found that viewership on every continent. So just even an online service or an online platform is relevant for people's lives in this digital kind of community that we're in. And then the other social media outlets to be able to share highlights from a message or from a worship song or a worship set in a way that can kind of help spread the message of Jesus Christ in a way that is relevant to people's context.
Right. No, that's good. Pastor Andrew, do you have anything?
I think one of the things that you do really well is that you can address things that are happening in the world in real time. And so you'll speak the truth of the gospel over situations that we're seeing on the news. And I think being able to speak and enjoy and engage the conversation that's happening online, not run from it, but run to it and see it as a potential to further the gospel as opposed to trying to sit back and play it safe. Instead of being on the defense all the time, we can actually go on the offense and say what Jesus would say into these situations that are happening in our midst.
Right, and that's one thing I love about the two of you. You are very authentic, and authenticity goes a long way. People, you know, that you can relate. They want someone that they can relate to. You know, people that have never been in church or don't know about church, didn't grow up around church, their families just did not do that. They may be intimidated to come up and talk to a pastor or get to know a pastor because a lot of people feel that they may be walking in shame or condemnation. And I think it's important. I love how you guys are so open, especially to the youth, because those are the ones that I think need mentorship, and they need people like you that can speak into their lives and can encourage and edify. So thank you for that. That's one thing that I really love about you guys, as having a 15-year-old teenager. You know, he actually enjoys going to church.
That's good.
He actually gets up on Sunday morning and says, you know, he's excited about going to church. Not every teenager, you know, is. I'm not going to say excited, but he doesn't complain about it. We'll put it that way. So what are some ways that you both can share about reaching the community? What are some things you can give or some nuggets to reach the community?
Well, I think it starts with us individually. You know, we can't expect a church corporately to reach out into the community if we're not doing that individually.
Right.
And so we kind of have a mantra at our church, which is one till everyone. And that God's calling us to reach the people that are right around us until everyone who knows Jesus reaches the world. And it's very easy to do that. And we just kind of assess our settings that we're in. And so I'm starting with my family and I'm going, where do I need to share the gospel, or where do I need to disciple people in my family? Any kind of neighborhood friends or areas of leisure. My kids are active in all kinds of sports and activities, and over the course of time, I get to know the people that are involved in their kids' sports and activities, and so that has become a main area of outreach for me. In fact, we've seen a number of families come to the church just by being intentional in those relationships, being invitational in those relationships, and then sharing the gospel in that. One of my favorite stories is a family that started coming on Christmas Eve because of just a blanket invitation to my son's baseball team's families, and said, if you don't have a church, we'd love to have you come on Christmas Eve. They started coming. They were there every Sunday, and then on Father's Day, about 6 months later, the father gave his life to Jesus Christ, trusting in Him as Savior and Lord. And so I think it starts right there, and then once we're intentional about our own individual lives being in outreach, then you'll see a movement of people that are doing that. And if everyone would just kind of handle their own sphere of influence, I think that the gospel and the Great Commission that we've been given can be fulfilled in the entire world.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
I'd say authenticity is at the root of it. I think specifically the next generation has a keen sense of what is fake and what is not. They can smell fake a mile away.
They can.
And so we got to be real, and we've got to share where we really are at all times. And I think we got to look for opportunities and be opportunistic. Don't shy away from sharing what God has done in your life. One of the things we teach all the time is you don't have to have all the answers. Just share your story, because no one can argue with your story. Nobody can challenge what God has done in your life. And so share what He has done with those around you.
That's good. Everybody has a story.
That's right.
Everybody. And, when you share your story, the Word says we are supposed to share our testimony. That glorifies God when we give our testimony. And like you said, just sharing and opening your mouth. That family started coming to the church, and then the father, got saved. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's about the souls.
That's right.
At the end of the day, winning souls. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Stuck in the traffic of life and unable to reach your destination? Well, don't despair. Breakthrough for Life is a full-service life coaching company designed to help you break through the barriers that hinder full potential living. Are you frustrated on your job and need to make a change? We can help with workplace exit strategies that will not disrupt your finances. Do you find yourself repeating the same cycle in life? We can help you identify the blind spots and break the cycle. Breakthrough for Life is where your full potential is fully realized.
Starting a nonprofit corporation can be scary. With so many choices to choose from, a person could feel lost. See Nicole Henderson makes the 1023 tax exemption process easy and leaves you with peace of mind. With over 27 years experience helping nonprofits earn their full potential, they offer fundraising help, a fast-track 501c3 system, and a 100% approval rating. See Nicole Henderson gets the job done right the first time. Find out more at cnhenderson.com.
Since launching 10 years ago in the Chateau Alon area, the Vine Church has grown rapidly and has seen hundreds of people profess faith in Jesus Christ. 2 years ago, the Vine launched a second location in Flowery Branch to continue the mission of making disciples making disciples. You are invited to join us for worship at either our Chateau Alon or Flowery Branch location. Services are on Sunday mornings at 9:15 and 11 o'clock. For more information on the Vine or to watch services online, please visit our website, connecttothevine.org.
Hello and welcome back to Destinyx, making a difference for this next generation. We have with us today Chai-T Mathias Reed, and she's going to talk to you today about teen violence. She's going to talk about abusive relationships, what it looks like to be in a healthy relationship versus an unhealthy relationship. We just talked about transparency, and now we're going to touch on relationships. So Chai, welcome. Thank you so much. So good to see you.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
So let me ask you, with relationships, what does dating violence look like to this next generation? What does that look like to someone that may not know?
Okay. Well, in a healthy dating relationship, we know that you treat others the way you want to be treated. That's the golden rule. But in an unhealthy relationship, you find yourself constantly on an emotional roller coaster. Maybe the person you're in a relationship with is putting their hands on you, pushing you, hitting you. Maybe they're calling you mean names. Maybe they're degrading you in some way, telling you that you're never going to be anything. So it can have various forms. It's not just physical. It can be emotional. It can be sexual. It can be someone pressuring you to have sex or to be intimate before you're ready. So abuse looks very different, and that's one of the reasons why we do the Loves Me, Loves Me Not workshop.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about the workshop, Loves Me, Loves Me Not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Loves Me, Loves Me Not came as a result of my personal trauma and personal pain. I am a domestic violence survivor. When I was 13 years old, my stepfather stabbed me 13 times, sexually assaulted me, left me for dead after he murdered my mother. And so to grow up after that, after experiencing such a great trauma and not really understanding why or what I'm left here to do, I went on a journey looking for love in all the wrong places, wanting to find purpose, wanting to find meaning to why something like this would happen to me. And I found love, at least I thought I found love, and I got married very young, had children very young, and then quickly the relationship turned into abuse. And so I made a decision very early on, because of what happened to me in my childhood, not to subject my children to that type of environment. So I left the relationship, left the marriage for my daughters. Years moving forward, I became an advocate for women who have been impacted by domestic violence. And through that process, I learned that domestic violence is a cycle. Usually, if you've experienced it in your family, the likelihood of you also going through that as a young adult or as a victim yourself or as a victimizer greatly increases. So through that education, I made a decision, you know what, I want to be a cycle breaker. Well, what does it mean to be a cycle breaker exactly? It means enough is enough. It means it stops with me. My children will never have to go through what I went through. And so I took all of that pain and that passion and that education, balled it up into a prevention workshop, and actually started facilitating Loves Me, Loves Me Not, which is a dating violence prevention workshop. Just really empowering young people of what to look for in a relationship when it's unhealthy, and then what they should be expecting when it is healthy.
That's beautiful. You know, I have with my son, you know, I'm already speaking to him. I was praying for his wife when he was in the womb.
I know, that's right.
And I tell him, you have to be cognizant of who you're dating. You know, check the bloodline. You know, was there suicide? Was there, you know, bipolarism? All those things, because I think it's important to know what you're getting into. Everybody has something, but educating yourself and knowing, you know, taking your time, because relationships, you need to take your time. So many of these young people just rush into these relationships and they're getting married quickly and having a family quickly, and they haven't really had time to mature.
Exactly.
You know, so what would you say to young men and women out there, things to look for, and healthy versus unhealthy?
Okay, well, healthy versus unhealthy. If you have goals that you've established for yourself and you've shared them with your significant other, are they helping to promote and support the goals that you've set? Are they really trying to help you move forward in your life? Or are they selfish? Are they only thinking about themselves? What about me? If you go away to college, how is that going to affect me? Are they physical with you in any way? I mean, no one should be putting their hands on you. Are they pressuring you to do things that you're not ready to do? Are they respectful or are they disrespectful? Everything goes back to the golden rule. You treat others the way you want to be treated. And so in a healthy relationship, we can agree to disagree. We can have disagreements. We can see things differently, but we don't have to yell, argue, fight, scream, pull hair, or call names. And so unfortunately, this generation glorifies it because it's what we see on social media, but it's not healthy.
Yeah, and then TV. You see a lot of TV and all these reality shows and all the things that are going on, and you know, it's like they're encouraging that type of behavior when, you know, God's called us to honor each other in the home and honor one another, you know, in our family life.
That's right.
So 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 when you went through all that with your family life, and you did go through the trauma, and that is rooted, which carries on into your adulthood. But of course, now God's using that platform for you to do amazing things and to go and help others. How would you talk to a young woman out there that's being pressured into sex before marriage, or being pressured to go down that road? Because I know that's a big one. Let's touch on that.
Absolutely. So the question I always ask young women, and this has nothing to do with their relationship with God or not, I always start with a place of, are you ready for the responsibility that comes with sex? Are you ready for the emotional responsibility? Are you ready for the baby? Are you ready for the sexually transmitted disease? When I ask those three questions, this has nothing to do with God, they're usually like, no. So why would you be ready to make this commitment in a, unhealthy relationship outside of marriage? So then we have the conversation about marriage and what marriage is supposed to be, what the confounds of marriage and how sex should be reserved for marriage. And I get a lot of conflict with that, because they're like, well, then no one wants to date me. So then we have the conversation about purity and being set apart, and really understanding that God could do so much through you as a vessel if you've consecrated and set yourself apart for Him, for His use, for His glory. And they kind of look like, okay, is that something that I want to commit to right now? And then I flip the conversation again, and I ask, so do you think that the gentleman that you're with is ready for a sexually transmitted disease? Is he ready for a baby? Is he ready for the commitment in a marriage situation? And if she says no, I said, so why would you be willing to give him something that's so precious to you? And so those are the conversations that we have with the young ladies.
Those are good conversations to have.
Very honest, very transparent.
Yes, because commitment, that's the word. When you're going into a covenant of marriage, commitment, because it is a covenant, and you should be respectful of those things. And I know that God's way, He would want you to save yourself for that special person, and to make sure that that you're ready. Like you said, I mean, are you ready for a baby? Are you ready for all the responsibility that comes with that? Because when you have a child, it's a commitment to that child. You're responsible to take care of that little human being. So those are a great nugget. Those are great things that you're sharing. Is there anything you'd like to say to the young men and women out there for this next generation? If you want to speak into the camera, anything you'd like to share with them that you think would be important for them to take with them?
Jeremiah 29:11 says that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. When I was 13 years old, I had no idea that I would have to go through some of the pain and the trauma that I had to experience, had to live through. But in my heart, I always knew that God had a plan and a purpose for me. And if I continued to pursue that relationship with Him, if I continued to cling to Him with everything that I had on the inside of me, that plan and that purpose would be fulfilled. And so I encourage you today, if you've been through pain, if you've been through heartbreak, if you've been through trauma, God has not forgotten about you. He loves you. He's concerned about you. So if you just take a moment even now just to say, Lord, I just thank you for my life. I thank you for everything that you've brought me through. I thank you for the tears, and I thank you for the place that you're taking me to.
That's great. That's great. And how do we protect ourselves? How would one protect themselves from domestic violence?
Well, you can't really protect yourself from it, but you can be educated about what the warning signs are, so that when you're making an educated decision about who you want to spend the rest of your life with, or who you want to allow yourself to be in a dating relationship with, education is key. Knowing the warning signs of abuse, like you said, taking your time, getting to know the person, getting to know their family. Is there a family history of domestic violence? Because a lot of times if a person has been exposed to that through their family history, then that's going to show up again in their dating relationships as well as in their marital relationships.
That's all they know.
Absolutely, it's what they know.
Yeah, children learn what they live.
Absolutely. And so it's really important to have those hard conversations. One big thing that we teach when we do the workshop is really understanding your boundaries, setting healthy boundaries. What boundaries have you set in your dating relationships? Boundaries are very, very important. In addition to that, just making sure that you know who you are. and who God says that you are. Because when you know who you are and who God says that you are, you won't subject yourself to being mistreated, misused, or abused.
That's great. You're right. You're right. And you have that self-respect of yourself.
Absolutely.
And you know that that's not okay. So those are great, healthy tools. You know, we always try to, you know, when I got remarried, my husband Wes and I, we took our time. We got to really know each other. We talked on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And he came and spent a lot of time at our home. He would, you know, spend time with us, because the more time you spend with someone, you really do get to know a lot about that person. And the signs aren't always there in the beginning.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your transparency with that and sharing your story. And so now you are in a great place and you have a wonderful family. And tell us about that. Tell us about
so I'm
where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm remarried, and I've been married for about 2 years.
And I met your husband. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's an awesome man. I have 2 beautiful daughters who are teenagers right now, and they are teaching me every day how to do the work that I do, having millennials in the house.
Yes, yes.
So they are participants of Loves Me, Loves Me Not. They understand, they've been educated, and they also share as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So they help you with your
Workshops.
nonprofit. That's wonderful. That's great. And how old are they again?
17 and 18 now.
17
I was
and
gonna say
18.
16, but 17 and 18.
Yeah, that's always a fun age when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we just love having you on the show.
Thank you so
And
much.
I've actually been to one of your workshops. When we met at a summit a year ago and got to see a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about regarding your workshops? Do you want to share with them a little bit about what your workshops are about before we close?
Absolutely. Well, Loves Me, Loves Me Not, again, is a dating violence prevention workshop. It's not just for teens, it's for millennials in general, so the college-age student as well. We basically come in and do anywhere from an hour to a 90-minute interactive session for girls only and for boys only, and sometimes we can do a little co-ed. It's not as effective when we do co-ed, but it's definitely gender specific. And we educate teens on what to look for in a dating relationship, what violence is. You should see the light bulbs that come on when they recognize themselves as the abuser in the room. It's very powerful. We also give them tools on how to get out of an unhealthy relationship and how to also be a bystander and support someone else. So if you have a girlfriend who's going through this, if you have a brother who's abusing his sister, we give them tools on how to really support them during the process of getting out of the unhealthy relationship.
That's wonderful. And when is your next workshop? Do you have one scheduled?
I don't have one scheduled right now. Primarily, we do them in February, which is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. However, from time to time, I'll get an invitation to come and facilitate for community organizations or groups of teenagers. So I'm open to do them at any time.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the workshops, are they global, not just yours? I know there are different ones that you attend. I know you've invited me to a few. They're global?
Loves Me, Loves Me Not is a personal workshop that I developed, so it's not something that's global as of yet.
But the others are global, with the teen violence.
Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month is a national
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I wish we had more time. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us on DestinyX.tv. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.